Hello everyone. So in this session, I want us to register user so that it will enable us in future to perform authentication and authorization. So what I will do, I'll go to my user.py. I'll rename this route to be register. I'll call it register user. And then I mean the function, that's what I mean, the function. And then in my route, I'll pass it as users. And then I pass methods to be post. And then now inside here, I need to get data from the user. So what I will do, I'll start by initializing data is equals to request. So remember this request again, you need to import it from Flask. And then I'll say request dot get underscore JSON. And then below here, I'll now initialize. So I need username from the user. I'll say data. So we extract this data from. I will extract the username, email, and password from this data. I'll say data username. I'll replicate this. Then username, email, password. Again, remember password. So sorry for that, password. Again, remember password. Remember password should be hashed. All right, should be in hashed format. It should not be raw. Somebody should not be able to read the password in the database. So what you need to do, you need to hash this password. So for it to be able to hash it, you need to import what we call generate password hash. That is from WorkZeck security. So I'll say from WorkZeck.security import generate password hash. And then I'll come here and then I'll hash this password directly. So I'll say generate password hash that way. And then I also need to check if the username and email exist in the database. So I'll come here, I'll create a simple variable, check username, or I can just call it check username. And I'll say is equals to I'll say user, which should be, remember user is the model which should be imported. So I'll say from dot models, or I can just say from model. From models import user. All right, from dot. It should be, I think it should be this way. I think that one is okay. So from models import user. So I'll say check username and then user dot query dot filter by username is equals to this username. That way. That is username is equals to username dot first. So just fetch the first one, and then I replicate the same to check email. Check email. Check email, and then user dot query dot filter by email. So after doing that, now we need to have an if statement. So I'll say if check username. That means if username exists, or check email. So if email again exists, right? If this exists, now give a user an error message. So I'll come here and say return JSONify. Then I'll say error. Then I'll say username or email exists, right? And then after that, that means if it doesn't exist, go ahead and save it into our database. So I'll come just below here and then now add it to the database. So I'll just create a new variable here. I'll say new user is equals to user, and then username is equals to username, and then email is equals to email, and then password password is equals to password. So remember, this one is the database column, and then this one is this variable. Same with this one, email in the database, and then email is this one. So for the other fields, for example, is admin and is approved, these ones we'll use them later on, right? So so by default they are false, so it's still okay. So I'll go ahead and now go ahead and save. Not actually save, you need to add it to a session first. Alright, so I'll say db.session.add, then you pass the new user, and then I'll say db.commit. So now that one will save changes to the database, and then now return a success message. I'll call it success, and then user saved, or user saved successfully. User saved successfully, that way. Now we need to test now our endpoint, which is the users, and then method of post. So I'll be using Postman, but before I go to Postman, I need to run my server. I'll just say Flask run dash Flask run dash debug debug. Right, so this is now our URL. So I'll copy the URL. I'll go to my Postman. I'll just create a new collection. So this one is an extension. This Postman is an extension, VS Code extension, so you can just download it. So I'll just go create a new collection here. I'll call this one to do app, and then there we go. Let me just rename it again. I thought I called it to do app. So that's the name of our extension. So inside this extension, I mean inside this collection, I'll create a new request. So first, before I create a new request, I will create a folder. So this folder will belong to user. I'll just call it user. So it will have all the requests that belongs to the user model. So I'll add a new request, and then I call it just call it add new user. Add a new user. Okay, I don't know, I'm trying to rename this one. Let me just rename it. Add new user, that way. Click on it, and then go ahead and try to add the new user. So I'll pass the URL /users. I think it is /users from user.py/users, and then change this one to be post, and then go to the body row, and then JSON, that way, and then I'll add my data. So I'll say username, then Kelvin, and then email kelvin@gmail.com, and then password. Password should be, I can just pass it as Kelvin again. for ease of usage later on. So I'll say Kelvin that way. So I'll save this, Control S, and then I'll go ahead and try to send it. So I have an error somewhere. User line 10. Oh, yes, I can see it. Line 10. There's somewhere that I did make a mistake here. It should not be a request.get underscore JSON. It should be underscore JSON, by the way. So that's the error that I'm getting. So probably now it should be able to work. So let's check it again. db.session.add. Let me just close this. Oh, db is not defined. Sorry for that. So remember, db again should be imported from models. So I'll say comma db, user and then db, and then I think we are good to go. Let's try again. Commit, attribute error, commit. Come to the user again. Oh, okay. Yes, should be db.session.commit that way. Try again. Alright, so the user has been saved successfully. When I go to my database, you can now see a new user has been added. So that's all for now in this session. Let's meet in the next one.